Okay, we're recording. Oops, sorry. My notes, I couldn't read them. Okay. Welcome to today's episode of Navigating Nursing School with your nursing tutor. Today, we're going to be discussing how to put your best foot forward and market yourself as a nursing student so that you can set yourself up for success and prepare to get the job of your dreams even before you ever graduate. Now, to help you learn exactly what you need to do, I want to introduce you to my guest, Justine Bailey, who has also been on our podcast before. Justine is a registered nurse and a passionate nurse educator from Ontario, Canada, and she's worked in nursing practice, education, and leadership for over 15 years. Now, apart from teaching, she is also a nurse entrepreneur like me. Her business, Just Like That, utilizes social media, content creation, and coaching to educate and empower nurses and nursing students from diverse backgrounds to lead meaningful lives and professional careers. Welcome to the show, Justine.
Thank you for having me, Nicole. I'm so happy to be here. Excited to dive right in and talk about how to stand out.
Yes, absolutely. I love that topic. And I know that at this time of year, a lot of nursing students, as they're preparing for graduation and preparing for NCLEX and preparing to get their very first nursing job, it's a lot of preparation. And I think both you and I agree that it often needs to start a lot earlier than most people think. So
Uh,
why don't we start by just sharing, when do you think is the best time for nursing students to start thinking about their very first nursing job?
that's such a great question because a lot of students get into nursing school and they're like, they think they can spend the first few years at least just kind of getting their feet wet, getting kind of settled, learning a little bit about nursing and all. And then year 3 and 4, it's like this mad scramble, right? To get the resume ready and start to apply for jobs and ask for references and that sort of thing. But I tell students from day one, the moment you step onto campus, or the moment you get into nursing school, um, your job hunting starts, or at least that process starts. Because tell you what, like the moment you enter nursing school, you are already being assessed and evaluated. Maybe not formally,
Mm-hmm.
but you are marketing yourself. And I guess we'll get into this a little bit later on in the podcast, but like you are marketing yourself as a future nurse, as a potential nurse. Your professors are watching, your peers are watching, your clinical instructors, the nurses and staff that you encounter at clinical placement, at your clinicals. You're always marketing yourself. So that job hunt really begins from the jump. So if you haven't thought about it from that perspective, whether you're in year 4, year 3, or even year 1, like it starts now. You can start today, and start that process. So that
Yeah.
would be my advice. Yeah.
So what do you now already at the beginning, because we have for people who are listening, we usually have a little checklist of things and it just jumped in my head. I don't even think this is on your checklist. So I'm going to
Yeah.
throw you before I leave at the very beginning. No, what would you say to somebody though? Because I think that a lot of nursing students, especially early on, because I agree with you, you need to be thinking about this stuff early.
Mhm.
Um, and the earlier the better because you can set yourself up and make things easier for you. But what about the students who don't know, like, what kind of nursing they even want to do? Like, they don't know what specialty. What would you say to them?
That's okay. You don't have to have it all figured out right now. Most of us didn't, if we're being honest
Right.
with
I
ourselves.
didn't.
We go into nursing school thinking we have one idea of the nurse we want to be based on the knowledge and the ideas and the perceptions that we have in our mind. But you're going to grow, you're going to evolve as you go through nursing school, as you learn more about yourself, as you learn about your interests, as you learn about your passions, and it's going to change. And so if you don't know what kind of specialty you want to get into, if you don't know what kind of, you know, nursing practice, that's okay. Even after you graduate, if you still don't know what you want to do, that's the beauty of nursing. You can try, pick one. Like you have
Mhm.
options. The world is yours. Pick one, try it out. And if you don't like it after some time, say thanks, but no thanks. Here we go. Pivot. Try another thing. That's how many of us stumble across our passions and our interests. And then when you finally find the thing that fits, the thing that gets that fire inside of you, sometimes it can take years
Yeah.
to get to that. So you don't have to have it figured out after you graduate. And I think, most people assume that you should, even your
Mhm.
professors and the public. Oh, what specialty are you going into? Well, you might be going to peds now, but that might not be what it's going to be like, a couple months from now or years from now. And that's okay.
Right.
You're figuring it out as you go.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem with our Western education system, which I rail against often with your nursing tutor and the tutoring I do, is that we just have this old fashioned mindset that like what are you going to be when you grow up? Like it's
Yeah.
one thing, you know? And but actually one of the things that pulled me to nursing originally
Yeah.
was this idea that it didn't have to be one thing, that there was so many wildly different things that
Mhm.
I could do with a nursing degree. And I have. I've done operating room nurse, which pediatric operating rooms, which I didn't even know I could do when I graduated until I graduated. I did like phone triage and of course being a tutor. Like I love that the best. And it took me a while to figure that out. So
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's not a one. You have to choose one. Can't
right.
you be more than one? Can't you
Absolutely.
be, an OR nurse and a home care nurse? Maybe you do that on the side, right?
Oh,
Or an
yeah,
aesthetic nurse on the side. It's not a either or. It could be a
it can
and
be.
this, and this, right? And I think that shift needs to change in our thinking, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So do you think that nursing students have to pay their dues in med surge before they can move into another area of nursing?
Ooh, da, da, da.
Controversial.
You're throwing the hard questions. Honestly, I just think whatever placement or practicum is going to expose you to new things, is going to expand your skills, it's going to stretch you. That's the place you need to be. It doesn't mean it has to be med surge. It could be another, like it could be another kind of unit but you're still learning, you're still building the skills, you're still expanding your knowledge, you're growing your knowledge base, you're building confidence. Like all of those things are important. Do you need to know the foundational things?
Yeah.
Absolutely. But you know, I I get why we've been so traditional in our thinking to say, yeah, everyone's got to do a med surge rotation. But you know what? If I'm being, I never did a med surge rotation, and I
Me
turned out
neither.
okay. I think I turned out okay. I don't
Yeah.
know. You read about it. You read the big old med surge textbooks and everything. You know the principles and everything. But I never actually got a med surge rotation, if I'm
Mhm.
honest, right? Um, so yeah, again, it's that traditional way of thinking. Because let's face it, a lot of nursing students too, they know they don't want to be in clinical. They don't want to be at the bedside. So why are we forcing them or like pigeonholing them into this like clinical fear, when they might flat out know, no, clinical isn't for me. That's a whole other topic. That's a whole other podcast right there. But
We could do a whole
um,
nother episode on that. Yeah.
going back to your question, is a med surge rotation required? In my mind, not really. As long as the students are being exposed to learning experiences that where they were able to apply concepts, practice things, develop their confidence, expand their knowledge. Doesn't matter whether that's med surge or some other clinical environment. The main point is that they're growing in their knowledge base and they're able to apply that knowledge in a meaningful way, in my opinion.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I did not do a med surge. I went straight to OR after
Oh,
graduation too. And it's been interesting over the years because even when I was in nursing school, it was still kind of I think like 50-50. I felt like where like
mm,
half of the advice was you should always pay your dues at med surge and the other half of the advice was like, no, it really is opening up to you could go
yeah,
straight into a specialty. And I think it's been sliding over the years even more heavily towards just start where you want.
yeah.
As long as you're getting a good experience and learning the skills that you need.
That's right. That's
So
right. And nowadays, people are hiring. They're not necessarily requiring that med surg experience. They're taking who they can get just because of the
right.
shortage right?
And treating
So
them. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. So there's definitely a shift for sure. Med surge is not the end all be all. You start with where you start, and it doesn't. There's not this like rite of passage anymore.
No.
So I'm
Yeah.
glad that that's the case.
Okay. So
Yeah.
all that being said, let's say every nursing student, no matter where they're at today,
Mm,
first day or just preparing for graduation, if they haven't been preparing for to market themselves, now's the perfect time. It's always the
yeah.
perfect time to start now when you learn about it. So, but what would you say are some of the key things? Like if somebody's just getting ready to start, or maybe they're starting next fall, uh,
Mm.
what kind of advice would you give them when it comes to, putting their best foot forward and marketing themselves and these things that you're talking about, and why is it important for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for the student who's just starting out nursing school, who's just entering, you're not going to be putting your resume together right now. Let's face it. You're there to learn about the profession, to understand what it's like to be a nurse, what the role involves. And so my recommendation or my advice would be, you're really starting to develop the skills of being professional, like professional. You are a professional student. That's your job. You may not have the job of a registered nurse or a practical nurse or what have you, but your job is a student. You are a professional student. So what does that mean? Coming to class on time,
Mm.
being prepared, communicating in a professional way, whether it's in person or even in your emails. Like I can't tell you how many times you get emails from students where it's like, hey,
Right.
yeah, I think I can. And it's just like, no, that is not the way we email in the professional world. And so, my advice would be those little things show up as a professional student in the everyday things,
Mm.
submitting your assignments. When you submit your assignment, that is a reflection of who you are.
Mm.
That is a reflection of you, right? So you're not going to be just submitting something you just kind of, you
Together.
couple hours and no, this is a reflection of who you are, your work ethic, your pride, your sense of pride, like you put work into this. And so that's what I would recommend. Every interaction you have, every opportunity you have to display who you are as a professional student, take advantage of that and do it in a meaningful way. So whether it's, interacting with your professors,
Hmm.
interact with them in a professional way, you're not going to, walk into class in your pajamas. Yeah.
Right. As comfortable as that would be.
Right. You want to be comfy, right? I get that. You're sitting there, you're there for 3, 4 hour lecture. I get it. You want to be comfy, but at the same time, you don't want to be perceived in the wrong light. Because guess what? At the end of your 3 or 4 years and you're applying for a job, who are you coming to for your reference?
Mm.
Your
Hmm.
professors, your preceptors, your clinical instructors. And so they're going back in their memory like, what was my encounter like with Nicole? Oh, I remember she came to class. She was always prepared. Her assignments were stellar. She came in her professional attire. Like, you know what I mean? When she came to
Yeah.
clinical, she was always well dressed. And that I'm not expecting, or professors aren't expecting you to be, come in formal wear or anything to class. But you know what I mean? Like you're not
Absolutely.
coming like you just rolled out of bed type of
Yeah.
thing.
It's not an 8 a.m. intro to psych course where there's like 500 students there.
Yeah.
You'll notice what you're wearing.
Yeah. But it's just the little things like that. They make a difference, and it whether you like it or not, you're leaving an impression on people. Whether you're aware of it or not, you're leaving an impression on people everywhere you go. You go to the gas station, you go to the supermarket, you are always marketing yourself everywhere you go. The
Yeah.
social media content you put on your TikTok,
Oh,
Instagram,
yeah.
that's a reflection of who you are, right?
Yep. Yeah. I
So
think it's,
start there.
yeah. I
Yeah.
was gonna say, I think it's interesting how you said, like, whether you like it or not. And
Mm,
that makes me think, because that brings to mind to me, like, professionalism is one of those, can be one of those soft skills too. Like I was just, I'm in a bunch of, Facebook groups for nursing professors. And
Mhm.
so it's interesting to me sometimes to kind of get the lay of the land and see even where professors disagree with one another.
Mm,
And somebody was posting about anonymously about a nursing student in their program that they were having difficulty with professionalism. And first of all, they were discussing the possibility of failing this student simply because of their perceived professionalism, even though he was meeting all of the other requirements of the program. So, and that's not something that's easy to like nail down. you know,
yeah.
there's certain things you can say, like you can make a dress code and things like that, but there was just some soft things with the way he interacted, the way he referred to even the doctors and the professors, and the language that this student used, that the professor was really concerned about.
Mhm.
But what was interesting to me was the comments, because there was a lot of professors that were like, "Oh yeah, fail this guy." It happened to be a male student, but
Wow,
they were,
hardcore.
yeah. And then there was a lot of others that were like, "The times are changing. Are you sure that the way the student is talking to you is just not is still appropriate?" And they were
Mm,
like, because for example, using first names in a lot of areas, that is acceptable.
yeah.
I even say this is kind of it's a non-nursing story, but it was one of the formative stories of my youth. I'm from the East Coast, but I had a lot of family in the Midwest, and in the East Coast, like all of my aunts and uncles, I referred to them, with their title, aunt or uncle, and their first name.
Mhm.
And so when I would visit my aunts and uncles in the Midwest, I referred to them the same way. And by the time I was a teenager, my aunts and uncles were literally making fun of me for referring them to it was actually embarrassing when I realized, because none of them out there would use the title aunt or uncle. So it was very
Mhm.
much kind of a cultural thing.
Yes.
Um, and so that leads me it was just making me think about professionalism. Even, there's some standards I think everybody would agree on, but then there's the soft skill of knowing how to read the room,
Yeah.
like going into your nursing program and getting a feel for, is this the type of program where the professor prefers me to call them by their first name, which I don't see a lot of those kinds. Because you know what? If you're going to get that degree, you deserve to be called by your title, I think. um, and but some instructors do prefer to be called, by their title and first name, or their title, or maybe they do like the formal of the title and last name, or maybe they're okay with not being called by their educational title, but they can be called professor,
Mhm.
or but understanding what is acceptable in your particular program. And and again, I do this a lot with my nursing students. I teach them just to like jump through the hoops, even if you don't particularly agree with it, or if that's not your default setting,
Mm.
again, read the room. And that's all. I think, I don't know, what would you think about that? To me, I feel like that's a lot of what professionalism is also,
Yeah.
is not necessarily one strict guideline, but knowing how to kind of assess, an important nursing skill, how other people, especially the people in positions over you, um,
Mhm.
how they want things to run, and
Mhm.
learning how to adapt to that in an appropriate way. What do you think?
Yeah, and as you say that, I completely agree because professionalism does include your ability to adapt, read the room, kind of like a chameleon.
Yeah.
Because the reality is one professor's classroom is one way, and then you go into another professor's classroom and it's another way, right? So how do you adapt to that? That's part of professionalism as well, because in the real world you're going to encounter, well, I address the doctor as this way by Dr. Wang or Dr. But with Dr. Smith, I can call him by Carl
Right.
because he's just, and that is part of professional. And you're absolutely right. I also think as you were talking, those soft skills, because nursing school, as much as it is about learning competencies and how to do specific techniques, and there's so much. I think there needs to be more emphasis on those softer skills
Mhm.
because more often than not, you are hired based on your soft skills,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
If you think about a resume, right? resume has all the kind of harder skills. You do talk about the soft skills, like you have compassion, you have, you're relatable, you have good communication skill. Like you can talk about them in a resume, but when you actually go in for an interview and you meet people and you demonstrate your professionalism, you demonstrate who you are, the that person on the other side is reading your soft skill. They're assessing all your soft skills, not your hard skills.
Right.
They're not telling you, show me how to start an IV. Show me how you would, manage this situation. They may, like through your interview questions, they may ask those, what would you do? But for the most part, they are assessing and evaluating your soft skills.
Right.
Are you a good fit for this particular unit? Your relatability, the way you show up, the way you can communicate, the way you can articulate your thoughts. Those are all soft skills that are a subset of kind of your professionalism. And you learn those things as a student.
Mhm.
You're learning those as a student. So that's why I say, your job search doesn't just start year 3 or year 4, like 6 months before you graduate. You are constantly developing those professional skills throughout nursing school. And then you actually finally get to put it to the test, in a real way when it comes to, obtaining your first nursing job.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's a process for sure.
it is. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think to go back to something else you were saying about the importance um, of being professional and reading the room and all this and developing those soft skills and even the earlier you get it, because one thing that people don't always think about at the beginning is that you are going to need recommendations and
Mhm.
referrals. And if you wait until the very end of your nursing program to think about that, that's not, then you're going to get very generic.
Yeah.
Like if you don't know people, if you can get them at all, right?
Yeah.
Like funny story from my nursing school. My first semester, there was it must have been a scholarship or something that we were all told about to apply, that we could apply for. And so I had asked my pharmacology nursing instructor to write a referral to me
Mhm.
for me, or reference recommendation, whatever. Um, and now I make a point. I have learned this from hard won experience to always ask for multiple copies of the recommendation. I know sometimes they try to keep them private sometimes, but I feel like if they're going to write it for me, then I have a right to read it. And
Yeah.
that's saved my butt a few times because mistakes have been made in
Uh,
recommendation letters, even from people I know well. But if I know them well, I can ask for a correction and they're happy to do that because it was an honest mistake. But this particular professor, she had clearly just like copied and pasted
oh
from
no.
something else and had written it as if she didn't know me at all, even though I'd been a good student in her class. I didn't know her particularly well because it was my first semester, but I had been a good student.
Yeah.
And she had like listed that she was the professor for the wrong class.
Oh no.
And I was just like, that's enough right there to just ask somebody else. Now, fortunately, I had been taking some of your advice before I even knew your advice, and I had already started developing some relationships with some of the other nursing faculty. So I had some other people I could fall back on, which
Yeah.
was helpful. She wasn't one of the permanent faculty either. Not that it always matters, but she had been somebody they had called in last minute to cover this class because they had a little bit of a teaching shortage at the time. So I suspect that that's probably what happened there. Whereas some of the permanent faculty, they were more than happy to grow that ongoing relationship back with me as well.
Mhm.
I don't think I got that scholarship anyway.
You took a little nugget from your experience. There you go. There you go. I have had, and that's one thing about, the professionalism, as well as like your faculty can teach you so much, apart from just like the content they're teaching
Hmm.
and they're required to. But if you can snag a mentor,
Hmm.
a faculty member, and preferably someone full time that you're going to be seeing throughout the years, that may be teaching you in year 1 and then again in year 3, you don't get, like, I would highly recommend for you to develop that relationship with faculty members and carve out organically a mentorship relation. There's
Mhm.
so much benefit in having faculty as mentors. For me, I met my mentor in the beginning of year 3,
Mhm.
and she, by my career wouldn't be where it is now if it wasn't for her, because she literally took me under her wing, taught me about just professional. I remember she had to have a conversation with me about my email, the way I
Oh,
was emailing. Yeah, like I got the talk because I was just very casual with my email, and I'll never forget, she replied, and she was just like, I just want to, and she said it very eloquently and gently, just be mindful of how you're conveying yourself in a professional way. And so she always role modeled professionalism. She always kind of took me under her wing and kind of showed me what it's like,
mhm.
to be a professional as you're going through nursing school. And eventually she became my reference for jobs, for graduate school, for every single job I got after graduation. She was my reference because they always ask for an academic one. So
Yeah.
I used her. So I would start thinking about that. If you're in nursing school, like, look at all your faculty members, look at who's full time, look at who do you kind of connect with a bit already, and start from there, because you'll be surprised how many faculty would be happy to take you under their wing if
Yeah.
they want to. They just don't always have the opportunity to, because either no one asks or they haven't really, had an opportunity present itself to really be a mentor to
Yeah.
someone.
Yeah. For me, it was Dr. Taylor, Dr. Ruff, and Dr. Boyle. I had 3 nursing faculty that I was blessed to have strongly influence me, both
Yeah.
during my nursing school and still today. One of them, I even still have her email address. So once in a while,
And they
we
were
keep
invited to
each
my
other.
wedding. That's how
Oh,
influential they were to me. They were
yeah.
invited to my wedding way back when.
Yeah.
Um, but because they just help mold you, right? And they just help you evolve as a person, apart from a nursing student, just as a person. And
Uh-huh.
yeah, I'll forever be grateful. So think about that, as you're marketing yourself, who can support you? Your faculty, a mentor can support you through that process too.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
Now, one thing I wanna circle back to, though, that I wanna point out to everybody listening who's still in nursing school, is the quality that you had to have as a student when your faculty gave you that email feedback, because you had to have a level of humility to hear that, and
Hmm.
also an attitude of learning.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That, if I can remember, because it's been almost 20, it's almost 20 years now, but I do remember feeling like, oh, whoa. Um, I was a bit surprised, like, really? I didn't even recognize it.
Mhm.
So I was thankful that she was able to recognize that for me. And I was a bit embarrassed,
Sure.
honestly. I was kind of embarrassed, like, oh my gosh, she must be thinking I'm like this wacko here.
Yeah.
But it was really because I felt comfortable to talk to her like that. I just didn't recognize, you can still feel comfortable with someone who may be, in an authoritative position, but you still demonstrate your respect for them. You still have to demonstrate professionalism, even though you feel comfortable with them, right? Um, so I remember feeling a bit embarrassed. I remember feeling a bit shocked. But I did take that as a learning opportunity. Like, okay, I got to switch this up a little bit. I can't be doing this with with her in particular, or with other faculty. And so, you know what I started to do? I started using her as a role. So I looked back at how she wrote her emails, and
Oh,
I would look back, okay, how did she start her? What was the salutation she used? Like, hello, so and so. I hope this email finds you well. And so I was learning those are just basic common things, but I didn't, no one teaches you that stuff. So I had to fall back on role models, in this case, my mentor at the time. And then just even like, kind regards, best regards, sincerely, all the best. Like, just that language, that professionalism in the cyber world or the online world.
mhm.
Back then, it wasn't normal, wasn't commonplace to be emailing, right? So everyone was kind of emailing as they would talk, but
Right.
that's not the way it was. We now learn to, you know, demonstrate professionalism online in a written way. But back then, like almost 20 years ago, it was you type as
It
you
was all
talk.
pretty new. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
type as you talk. So yeah, it was a humbling experience, a great learning opportunity. But I did have to kind of swallow my pride and be like, okay, she's right. This isn't working.
Mhm.
I need to switch this up a little bit. Even though I do feel comfortable with her, there's still a level of professionalism. She's still in a position of power. Not that she exercises that
Right.
power, but you still have to show that respect, Marilyn.
Absolutely.
So yeah, yeah, I remember feeling that way. So think about that for your nursing students. Like sometimes you can be buddy buddy with your instructors, and that's all good. But at the end of the day, there's still a level of respect you need to
Mhm.
demonstrate.
And there's still some boundaries there.
Yes,
Yeah.
boundaries.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think too, it's probably useful just to point out because your instructor, she said she was a wonderful mentor and she gave you the grace of the benefit of the doubt. And she, she gave you feedback with the expectation you would take it well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I do hear lots of stories because I hear a lot of the horror stories, that's when
Okay.
by the time students find me, they've been burned a lot of times. And there's a lot of burnt out nursing faculty, unfortunately, too,
Absolutely.
who have lost that benefit of the doubt. And instead of giving that positive feedback, they made their first way of educating the patient, the student might
Yeah.
not be as polite.
Mhm.
um, and I would say, I tell students, even in that situation, understand that it's not personal.
Mhm.
It feels personal because it's you in
Yeah.
your email, but it's really not. It really says more about the state of the burnout level, like I said, of the nursing instructor and the previous experiences they've had. Because you have to remember that they're dealing with dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of other nursing students. And
Yeah.
just because you sent a quick email that might have had, not the formatting that she would want, or was asking the question that she's already been asked 17 times today that was in the syllabus.
You know.
Yeah, I said I get this all the time. I got 6 kids. By the time the third one comes and asks me what's for dinner, like I'm snapping their head off, even
Yeah.
though poor thing, they didn't know. Right? So I can relate to that a little bit,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's just to recognize that even in a situation like that as a nursing student, it in an ideal world, your instructors would always act professionally back.
Yeah.
Occasionally, they don't either, and
Yeah.
that's a reflection of them, yes. But also you have to kind of remember or think about like, what are your goals in nursing school?
Yeah.
And your goals are to learn and to develop these soft skills and to be professional and to move on with your nursing school journey, regardless of how your instructor treats you. So you can sometimes choose to like try to get that feeling of justice and have your say and, send back an email, or you can sleep on it
Mhm.
and maybe just like delete that reply and just take the feedback for what it's worth and be like, yeah, she could have told this to me in a more polite and professional and modeled a more professional manner, but she didn't. And now I know. So I'm just gonna, you know, not throw the baby out with the bathwater, as they say, and take the educational piece that I need and just get rid of the way that it was conveyed to me. So I just wanted to put that out there for some of the people who have gotten the same feedback, but not in quite as nice a way. So
Yeah, sometimes you're right. You do have to peel back all the extra stuff and give them the benefit of the doubt. Like as you said, they have their own issues, their own experiences that,
absolutely.
so you peel that back, take the most important part, keep it, forget about the rest, and move forward, right?
Yep.
And that's going to apply to your professional life as a nurse too. You might get snarky remarks from patients, families, colleagues, and you don't take it personally, although it feels like it in the moment. You just want to like say your thing and like come back with You want to come back with a vengeance, but at the same time, what is that going to cost you? Get, is it going to help you move forward with what your goals are? You know, someone once told me, like, even just in my own personal life, you don't put out fire with fire, right? You
Mm,
put out fire with water. So you got to like react with the total opposite, like if someone's coming with a hard email and you respond with just very polite, respectful, neutral, they probably aren't expecting that response back. It might take them back like, whoa,
you
what
might even
happened?
get an apology.
Yeah, you might get the apology. Exactly. So take that for what it's worth. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we could all use a dose of that every now and then.
Yeah. And I'm going to steal that analogy for my kids when they're yelling at each other and going at it. Like, you can't put fire out with fire. So
No,
that's
no.
very true. Well, I think that's a good spot to end it. Now, for everybody who's listening, I know, Justine, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom and tips for how to market yourself and just put your best foot forward in nursing school and what professionalism can mean and what that looks like. And if you guys found value from this too, you should go back a few episodes because last month Justine was also a guest on my show and we talked about the secrets that nursing instructors are not going to tell you.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's a good one to go back and listen to if you haven't heard it already. Now, Justine also has a special offer for everybody because since we're talking about putting your best foot forward, preparing for your future nursing career, looking for jobs, even from day one of nursing school. So, Justine put together a special offer for you guys. So, you want to tell everybody about it?
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. I'm so excited because when you are ready to put the pedal to the metal and start getting that first job or even change your job for nurses that are listening, you've got to sort out your resume, right? You've got to, and so most of us, our resumes are sitting on our computers collecting dust, and we haven't really looked at them in a long time, or we don't know what to do or how to format it, how to make it look all nice and pretty. So I've got resume templates for you for nursing students. I got a bundle package, and as well for nurses, I have a resume bundle package. They are both 50% off for a limited time for the month of June. So you can go to my website and purchase them there. They will be available for the month of June. And this is just a great way to spruce up your resume, give it a little bit of a makeover. They're downloadable. So all you do is download the templates and copy and paste. It's plug and play, really, really simple. So hopefully you go grab that package and put the pedal to the metal.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And you can get that at your website, right?
Yes,
Yep.
yes,
So it's just like that.ca, right?
that's right.
Excellent. So that's where you can find Justine's website and get that special deal. And it's not just June. It's like from now until through the end of June, right?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
So
Sorry.
yeah, this is we're publishing this in May. So you can go today and go get that. So don't forget. And listen, even if you're pre-nursing, even if you're just in your first semester or starting this fall, I can't even tell you how overwhelming it is to sit down and write your first resume right as you're graduating when you're also prepping for NCLEX and doing all of the things. But if you have that resume template sitting on your computer, you don't let it collect dust. Like at the end of each semester, you can go in because you might not know this yet, but you want to even put your clinical experiences on there. If you have a preceptorship, you put that on there. And it is so much easier to go through and put that stuff on like as you go through each semester. So don't think it's too early to grab that resume pack now
Yeah,
because you can be filling it out as you go through nursing school. So when it gets to the end of your nursing program, you're going to be thanking your first semester self, when you are your last semester self, because your resume is going to be half finished already.
exactly. Yeah,
So,
I love
yeah.
that. And even at the summertime when you're applying for summer jobs, go back, get that resume updated, and then you have it updated at least every year at the very minimum,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
And then come year four, when you're ready to grab that first nursing job, it's already done, or most of it, anyways, right? 90% of it will be done. So, yeah, this applies to year one, year two, year three, year four. Those
Yep.
resume templates will come in handy.
Yeah. And I have a lot of tutoring students who are adult learners.
Yeah.
returning to school either from a career change, or a lot of them have been stay-at-home moms for a while, and they may not have their resume updated for a decade or more. And so I know that resume templates have helped me so much. I would never do a resume from scratch anymore. I would always start with a template. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for that offer, and I'm so excited that you're sharing that. Thank you again for sharing all of your wisdom with us, and probably someday we'll have you back again because I like talking to you, Justine.
Yeah.
And
Thank you for inviting me, Nicole. I'm happy to be here, and I look forward to maybe meeting some of you on socials. So feel free to reach out. And thanks again, Nicole, for the invitation today.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Justine's on Instagram is her primary platform, at just like that IG, and she's also on TikTok, which is where she and I met. So you should connect with her on both of those platforms as well. So before you leave today, I'd really appreciate it if you could just do one quick thing for me, and that would be go to Apple Podcasts if you enjoyed this episode and leave a 5-star rating for me. It really, really helps other nursing students to find this podcast so that they can get help getting through nursing school confidently and calmly. And if you want any of the links we talked about today, just look in the show notes for this podcast episode. If you're watching this on YouTube, it should be in the notes right under the video. And you can also always go to Justine's website at it's just sorry, I'm always going to get it because it's just like that.ca. Yep. And you can also find me at yournursingtutor.com. So until next time, good luck on your nursing school journey. Okay.
Yay! How did you find that?